Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hi, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
Our software has a new setting for sound, which we're hoping is better, not worse, but we're just doing that disclaimer right from the beginning because we don't know what's going to happen.
We have no clue. Okay.
Isn't it scary when you go into software and it has new settings?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm just
I
saying.
think everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you all can relate to that. Yeah. And we are truly hoping that it is better and not worse. And it says it'll be better.
But we have no idea. We're just hoping for the best.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that you can hear everything we say, including the shout outs. We're so excited when we look at our stats. And there are, we're listened to internationally. And it's funny, like I'll say to people, oh, my podcast is listened to internationally. But until you look at the nations,
it's true.
And the areas of the world, it's like hard to relate to. So today we are shouting out a place in the world where people are listening to us. And that would be Azerbaijan.
Yes.
Azerbaijan. Thank you for listening. And Alison, you have somewhere in the United States.
Yes,
right?
We are shouting out Seattle, Washington in the United States. So hi, everybody there.
I love Seattle. I've visited Seattle and I love it.
I have two friends that live there.
You should go.
Yeah.
You would really like it.
Yeah.
I did think, though, that the Space Needle was not as tall as I thought it was going to be based on what I've seen on television.
Interesting.
Just say sorry,
Yeah.
Space Needle fans.
Yeah.
But I think I expected it to be much taller based on the helicopter fly-in for Grey's Anatomy or something.
But also we live so close to New York City where the buildings are extremely tall. So I feel like it might warp our opinion of other buildings.
That's very
right?
true.
So
that is very true.
Yeah.
So you're right. It could definitely warp our point of view or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
We are here to talk about screen time and other limits, as you can tell from the title. And I hope that you're not thinking, oh, they're going to dictate screen times to me for children again. That's not the purpose of this episode, really. Yeah. And especially, I think, because as Allison and I do research, we find things, and we have found things like the screen time limits recommended have changed over time, and they will probably continue to.
Yes.
As we get more information. Yeah. I believe it's a true statement that even the American Academy of Pediatrics has changed their own limits in the course of time.
That's true. Yeah.
The limits that come from the American Academy of Pediatrics, for example, if you are a child care professional, they may not match what your state is telling you to do. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that here in New Jersey, they are very strict about screen time. They want very, very limited screen time.
10 minutes.
It's very brief.
Yeah.
And other states are different, I know, because, I've worked with them.
Yeah.
So there's this variety. If you look up what are the screen time limits here, there, and everywhere, you're going to get a variety of opinions. But here's what I know for sure. Setting screen time limits teaches children an important life lesson, and it's limit making.
Yeah.
Right? That everything has a limit. The amount of time that we're going to allow you to spend on a screen, whether that's in our early childhood settings or at home, it has a limit, a healthy limit, right?
Yeah.
And I think that crosses over into other life lessons. I have seen in so many places, both professional and family, where there seems to be very loosey-goosey, no limits around screen time. And I'm just going to propose to you all that is a miss in teaching children a very valuable understanding of self-regulation and self-limitation.
Well, yeah, because where else are you going to teach it? That, you know what I mean? If you're not going to teach it there, whereas to me, that's a perfect time. There's a reason why there is a limit to screen time.
Yeah, because it's not fully good for their brains.
Yeah, it's not healthy for their brain development. It's really not healthy for us either as adults, right? But we weren't taught limits, I don't think. So therefore, I'm watching TV and TikTok until God knows when.
Are you really? I'm not allowed to have the TikTok.
You're lucky because it is like crazy.
People are now
all
saying,
of a sudden you're like scrolling,
No,
scrolling,
I don't do the TikTok.
scrolling, and you're like, oh wait, an hour has passed. I gotta stop.
People are now like, why is Cindy not allowed to have the TikTok?
Oh, yeah.
And I'll explain it. I'll explain it to you. It's because I instruct college courses through a couple of universities, and there are universities who do not allow TikTok because of things having to do with government regulations and because they receive funding from the government.
Yeah.
So anybody who receives funding from the government has, I guess, parameters, or we're going to call them limits, like in this episode.
There you go.
around what can be used. And it seems that they know somehow, because the technology is where it is, that if you have TikTok on your devices, I would not be able to access the university things that I need to do work. So there's that.
So they're imposing the limits for you.
They are.
Because we, as adults, I don't think we're taught a lot of limits that much. I remember when I was a kid, we were allowed to watch TV for as long as we wanted to.
I watched TV for really long. Like, let's think about the extension of this limit making and what it can teach children. So if you're home with children and you say, we're going to limit screen time to 1 hour per day, which is generally speaking a common recommendation. Yeah. And then those of us in early childhood settings really adhere to what are good screen time limits, either in our licensing or from research. Right. And we say, this is the limit. This is how much time you're allowed to do this. I think that then crosses over to things like, here, how much you eat has a limit, a healthy limit. If you eat too many calories, for example, it is very unhealthy for you. Right.
Or too much of certain foods is unhealthy for you. Like, I like cookies.
Right. But to be able to say
a whole bag of Oreos or something, is not good. If I say I'm going to have one, then I can limit, and that's a little healthier, right? But
if from the time you're a young child, you have been exposed to, there are limits to things. Yeah. And it's okay to limit yourself, and you get used to that idea of limits, right? Yes. Then maybe when we become adults, we are more easily able to say, I'm going to limit myself to one cookie, and which is this many calories, for example.
Right, because I think you're taught at a young age, I'd be like, the limits are there for healthy, appropriate reasons, and I know if I go over that limit, I'm not going to feel good in whatever way. Either I'm going to be sick because I ate too many cookies, or I'm not going to feel good about myself because I didn't keep to my limits, and when you don't learn about limits, you're like, well, I can eat a whole pizza. I'm good. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's fine. There's no thought process behind it. I think you're just like, yeah, it's fine. It's always worked out in the past, so it's going to work out now. But if you're already in the mode of these are here for a reason, and the reason is healthy, then you're more likely to follow it.
But I think we have to teach. We can't just say to children, your screen time is over. That's what I've heard people say. Right, your screen time is over. You need to move and let so and so come over here. Instead of it feels like a punishment to them. Instead of saying your screen time is over, so you need to move and give somebody else a turn, what we should be saying to them is, in the beginning, teach them, we are all allowed to use the screens for just a certain amount of time, use the word limit, limited amount of time. I will let you know when your screen time is over, because that's good for you. That's healthy. Yes. So I'll let you know when the healthy screen time limit comes. Yeah. And then we'll give someone else a turn. Yeah. And if we said to children, so many people, by the way, say to me, especially parents, say to me, well, how do we impose these limits? One way is we teach the children, there are limits. And those limits are good for you. They're good, yeah. So we're going to let you know when that good limit comes, because we want you to grow and be healthy and strong. So when the limit comes, you're going to go and think about something else and do something else and maybe do a little physical activity. Right. And in an early childhood setting, again, we need to sit children down and say, we are only allowed to use the screens for a limited amount of time, a certain amount of time, and I'm going to watch the time. Yeah. And I will give you a sand timer even. I'm going to give you a sand timer. Yeah. When the sand all goes to the bottom, that means you reached your limit, which is different than time is up. You reached your limit.
I like this idea of the sand timer.
Because they can see the sand.
But I also think that's a life lesson in time management skills. Yeah. I have the sand timer. It's in front of me. I could see it. the sand is going down, I'm playing whatever on the iPad or doing whatever on the iPad. And I know at a certain point, I'm going to have to finish up what I'm doing because the sand's going to run out. You know what I mean? I feel like that's and then maybe they will then learn how to use their limited screen time in an appropriate way so they can finish the task that they are doing.
So far we've touched upon 2 life lessons by saying you can use screens for this amount of time.
Yeah.
But by saying to them, there's a limit because that's what keeps you healthy and growing and safe, right?
Right.
So it's limit setting. Like there's a limit to screen time. There's also a limit to things like food. As you get older, texting, scrolling, social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. TikTok. There are limits to other things in life too. There's a limit to how much you can spend based on how much money you have.
Money management. I didn't even think of that. You're right. Okay.
So we've also touched on time management. There's the money. They'll learn more about money management because what they're going to grow up understanding is all things have a limit.
Yeah.
Right? All things, especially those things that we classify as really fun and great.
The vices of our lives.
Yes.
Yes.
The vices.
Yeah.
have a limit.
Yeah.
And you have the power. This is what we're teaching the children. You have the power to make sure that you are within healthy limits of things.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's been approached with children in a way that like, this is healthy for you.
Correct.
Because it feels to them so bad when we just say
that's
your
why-
time's up. Your time is up.
But that's why when you mentioned the sand thing, I forget what those things are called.
Sand timer.
Is that really all it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. A sand timer. Half the time when you're saying, when you're springing it on them, hey, your time's up. And what do you hear the most? But I didn't get to finish my game. I didn't get to finish what I was doing. Well, too bad. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if you give them the warnings, they'll be like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do it for 10 minutes. And I think they also learn time that way.
If you give them a sand timer,
yeah,
they can see the time going by.
yeah,
They can learn that when the sand gets to be less at the top, it's almost the end of their time doing this, whatever it is.
Right.
And so you need to start to finish up. But children don't know how to finish anything they're doing. We have to teach them. Like the sand is going to be all at the bottom soon, so you want to finish what you're doing with what you're doing on the... hopefully if they are looking at a screen, they're doing something like an educational ebook.
Yeah.
Not necessarily apps. Maybe they're using it to listen to a story, something like that.
Yeah, using it as the camera. That's
using
one
it as a
thing
camera.
I'm trying to institute into my class this year is like you use this to document your work.
Yeah.
But
there are limits.
Yeah.
There are limits. And wouldn't it have been nice if those of us in our generation grew up not dreading limits, but understanding that limits are what keep us safe and healthy?
Yeah. Because I don't think we were taught that.
No, I think we were taught we were taught limits as a very negative thing.
Like a punishment. Like I'm limiting this because you didn't earn it.
No, I don't even think it's that. No, I think it's just, okay, you can do this. When we were growing up, you can do this for X amount of time and now your time is up and that's that. I don't think it was explained to us.
Yeah.
I think the explanation was missing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was explained to us that we're doing this because it's really good and healthy for you to walk away.
Yeah.
Just walk away.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it one step further. When you understand that you have the power to set limits, you become a better boundary setter around things like relationships.
Oh, yeah, something I was not taught, yes. Okay.
The fact that it's okay to set limits as to how much you're going to tell someone else, how much you're going to take from someone else, how much time you're going to spend with people doing different things. It's okay to have a limit.
It teaches you that you, as a person, have value.
And power.
Right?
So
like it's valuable. You are a valuable person, so you should want to be healthy. And you should want these boundaries for yourself. And you should want to stick up for yourself. And you know what I mean? Like,
but I think there's a part of me that believes that if we don't do this, if we don't say to children, here's a limit, the limit is healthy for you, we're going to stick to this limit. They eventually internalize that.
yeah.
Right? At first, we have to do it for them. At first, when they're in the early childhood years, it's the adults who have to say, we're setting the limit. I'm giving you the sand timer. I'm setting this is it. We're sticking to the limit. We're going to absolutely stick to the limit. And in fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that families come up with a family media plan where everyone understands the limits, everyone agrees, and in some way everyone signs this plan, which can also be done in early childhood settings.
Yeah, I like that because everybody's involved.
Yeah.
I think in our generation, it was like, I'm the parent and I say what goes here. But the family media plan is like, no, we're all going to sit down and discuss this for what is healthy for all of us, right? They're all involved. They sign it. They're all agreeing.
So much is not handled that way. Even things like, we'll go back to how many cookies you can have or how much cake you can have.
Yeah.
These limits were just imposed on people. It was like, here, you can have 2 cookies without any explanation or understanding.
Right. So then I think when we grew up, we're like, now I'm an adult, I can eat 20 cookies. Right. So just because I can, like there was nobody taught us why we can only have 2 cookies. Now you're like, well, I'm going to rebel. I'm going to have a bunch of them, because I can.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. And my children, were they listening to this, are going to be laughing. So here's my funny story. Yeah. My children would tell you, absolutely, if given the opportunity, that many of the things they got when they were young was because I would have been told no. So they wanted something from one of those machines where you used to put in a quarter. I don't know how much they are now. The little toys that come out.
Yeah.
They wanted something from the little toy machine. They got it.
Yeah.
They wanted a ride on the pony that was a quarter. Again, I'm aging myself. But like a quarter outside the supermarket. Yeah. Yes, you can ride the mechanical horse because my mother would have said no.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that in my childhood where I recognize.
It's so true though.
Alison, when you see my kids, you have to ask them. They're going to be like, yeah, she did 1,000 things for us because Graham would have said no.
Yeah.
So here's the problem, I guess, that I had. No one explained to me the no. It was just no.
Yeah.
So when I had children, it was like yes to them because it would have been no to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, my children didn't grow up to be, terrible people. They're fine people.
Not at all.
They still had other limits. There were limits. But not to that, not to anything they would have said no. I would have said no.
Ride the horse as long as you want. but yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But I do think that like anything that I was not given or was limited in, now as an adult, I'd be like, now I can do whatever I want. And then I think so often like you would go to college. That's usually where you would see it. You would go to college, you would be away, you're like, nobody's here to tell me no. And those people did not do so well because they didn't know how to handle or limit themselves because they're like, all right, I can just drink as much as I want. I can party as much as I want. I can eat as much as I want. I don't have to study. There's no, you know what I mean? There was no limits. Nobody there to impose it because they were never taught how to do limits to themselves.
It's hard. It's hard to set the limits even as an adult. It's hard. The children are on screens, they're behaving, they're quiet, they're absorbed into the screen. Yeah. And you've got things to do. So it's hard to but when we do it and we're consistent, children will eventually learn they themselves have the power to set healthy limits. Yeah. So it starts with the low-hanging fruit, like screen time. Yeah. I think in the year that this is being released, right, which is 2025. Yeah. I believe that the lowest hanging fruit for teaching children limit setting is screen time. Yeah. And yes, we know that it impacts the developing brain. We know that.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't impress you enough, because it's something we can't really see, but if that isn't one of the priorities in your life right now, which can be understandable, just think of this. You learn things like your personal ability to set limits in the early childhood years. When we teach children, we are setting limits. We are sticking to those limits. Yep. Those limits are good for you. Yeah. I'm telling you, they will integrate that. It'll become one of their mantras. It'll become
their internal dialogue.
Yeah. It becomes how much of this should I do or have because what is good for me? Yeah. That's what it will become. Yeah. What is good for me? Yeah. And that is what we really want them to think about. Yes. So screen time limits and beyond, folks. Yeah. You are teaching them important life lessons. Yeah. Yeah. Now go and check what your state says about limits in early childhood settings, because that can guide you if you're a family and a professional. Go and check and see what the American Academy of Pediatrics is currently saying. You know, what are those sorts of associations saying? Check NACE, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and the advice that they're giving out.
Yeah.
Check 0 to 3, which is another association that really focuses in on the brain development of young children. So go check your resources and find out what limit would work best for you in your setting, in your family, in your class. Set that limit and teach the children the importance of limits. That it's not a punishment. It's actually to help you.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Preschool peeps.
Yeah.
I think we said it. Now go ponder that. And we will catch you next time on the podcast when we will shout out 2 more locations. And in the meantime, anything you need or want to say to us, go to howpreschoolteachersdoit.com and send the contact form or send us a message on Facebook. Where we have a How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast page.
Yes, we do.
Okay, preschool peeps, catch you next time.
Bye, peeps.